So now I'll talk about the turning point aspects of the war. And the Battle of Midway. Okay, so um, again, remember that the United States, comes in directly after Pearl Harbor. Okay, so um, there's already been all this warfare in which we've only been contributing some material and weapons support to allies not directly involved. Um, and then we see, um, you know, us fighting, the United States fighting really mainly in the Pacific. Um, the Battle of Midway is important, and it was important in an attack on, fighting Japan. And as you saw in this text, it says that basically on June 4, 1942, the Japanese had shot down 2/3 of American planes. But then an American dive bomber group had gotten lost, suddenly found itself above the main Japanese carriers. This is what we call luck. Okay? And this was able to give them a chance to make a blow put on Japan that would really knock out their capacity to rebuild. And it really helped shift things in favor, okay, of the United States and the Allied forces. And again, this is sometimes what we see when it comes to warfare or anything political. Sometimes, things just happen that just that you would call chance, but maybe some people think it's fate too. Whatever the case is, this battle could have easily went the other way, and actually, by looking initially, it should have went the other way. Okay, so that's all I want to just touch on that. The Battle of Alamein. This is not one you hear about as much, and this is just to remind us that North Africa was colonized already by, for instance, the French, and you had the Italians attempting to kind of take over the Mediterranean, which is connected with, to North Africa. And so this war wasn't just fought in Europe. Here we have Arabic Islamic speaking countries a part of this conflict. And many fought on the side of the Allies, many North Africans, Arab Muslims, by the way, okay, Berber Muslims, by the way, fighting on the side of the Allies. And some did collaborate with the Nazis, and Hitler became popular in various spots, and I think it should be kept in mind. The British were the ones who colonized Egypt, and the French colonized Algeria. And in the textbook kind of addresses later on, we're going to talk about in the next chapter, that controversial legacy. And then Morocco, and we see that Libya. These are all colonized by Europeans on the Ally side. So for many nationalists, they saw that it would be that Hitler and the Axis powers were more of the side to be on. That's why some Indians sided with the Axis as well, because the British were the ones who colonized India. Okay, and so sometimes in the third world, you'll find that the British, that the Nazis, and then later the communists have a lot more. There was a lot more sympathy towards their ideas, depending on what period of time, because the liberal democratic West were the ones that were viewed as their oppressors and the obstacles to their right to self-determination. I just kind of want to point that out. Okay. In any case, we see a decisive battle that takes place here in Egypt. Now, I want to make something also clear to talk about. Have you seen the movie Casablanca? Humphrey Bogart. Very powerful film. It's a great classic. And there's this one scene, I was almost going to show the clip for you, but I'm actually not. You can look it up, though, where in Morocco is ruled by France, which has the Vichy government, who then is bringing in Nazi collaborators, and so there's a kind of French Nazi German occupation that's going on in Casablanca, which is a Spanish word for White House, but it's actually Arab, Berber, Islamic Morocco that the whole story is taking place on. And in the film, there's this powerful scene where they're at a bar and there's some Nazis there, and they sing the Marseillaise, a French nationalist song, and it's very moving, and it's basically a way of giving, to be blunt, a middle finger to the Nazi Germans, a kind of French nationalist resistance to them as oppressors, and kind of like this idea of being a hero. And there's a talk about the French resistance and other European resistance going on within the film. And what's interesting to me about it is the whole time the Moroccans, the very place that the whole movie is taking place on, are merely the servers, the waiters. Their relationship to freedom, their relationship to this war and the right to be free is completely undermined. They're just the servants, the fill-ins, the backdrop to this European war, as if their part of this narrative is completely irrelevant. And so I kind of just want to point that out because, again, looking at this from a Western point of view, we don't need to look at Morocco all that much if we want to have a Western-centric point of view about it. If we're going to actually look at it as World War II and actually look at all human life that was drawn into all of these conflicts and what it all meant to them, we have to ask ourselves about the Moroccans serving the whiskey to Bogart, right, and selling the cigarettes in the film. That's just my little take on that to say, okay, so then another turning point was the Battle of Stalingrad. And this is a battle that really is just pure horror, and you should all know about, and is so pivotal. It essentially starts in August 1942 and ends in February 1943, and the amount of death and destruction that took place there was just ridiculous. And we're talking about, hand-to-hand combat. We're talking about just bloody urban warfare on a scale that probably has not occurred anywhere else. And I mean, just to give you an idea of the carnage there, the U.S. lost a little over 400,000 troops in the entire war, which is a lot. It's terrible. Okay? German soldiers, there were over 700,000 killed or wounded just on the German side. The Soviets, it appears to be almost 500,000 killed or missing, with additional over 650,000 wounded, and untold amounts of civilians that were killed in this one battle alone. Okay? And, here, there was this almost insane kind of like drive that Hitler was not going to let it go. And Stalin was not going to let a place named after him and this important war to go. And there was this commitment that no one was budging. If the bodies had to keep piling, it was just going to seem to keep going. But ultimately, it went into the Soviets' favor at the expense of the Germans, and it became a real death blow to the Nazi machine. But again, at a serious, serious cost. And it's something that we as Americans should not forget, and we should know about, okay? Because this is where the Soviets really take a hit in fighting off the Nazis. All right, so and here is Japan's territorial ambitions here, just to give you an idea, looking back. So you notice that Pearl Harbor is actually closer to Japan than it is to the United States. And this is the kind of position that we were in. So Hawaii is a colony that we took over. We displaced the Queen of Hawaii to favor American private plantation owners, and we annexed it to our nation. That's one of our colonies, right? And it was closer to the Japanese sphere of influence than us. I'm just pointing that out, is put the geography into context, okay, right? And here's Philippines, and Vietnam, so forth, okay, China, okay. Now, here's a map showing a lot of the Allied victories taking place, and here is the Russian front, and the extent of which reach the Nazis had at the time. Okay, and then here we have Alamein down here in Egypt. Okay, and we have here North Africa. So Algeria is being ruled by Nazi France, and so on. So, okay. So now I'm going to actually, we're going to end this lecture, go back to kind of summing up this war, and then looking at other aspects to consider over the legacy of World War II.